Hello everybody, this is Kyle from Not a Pro Gardener here. Welcome. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be seed starting our warm season crops, which is specifically tomatoes. Tomatoes we start a little early to get a little head start on production. So we're going to be seed starting tomato plants, and we're going to be doing quite a bit of extras where we can control the light and the temperature, and with the heat mat. We'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to be using a heat mat to germinate these seeds, and we like to seed start indoors mainly because we can control everything. We can make it a controlled environment for these, for these seeds to germinate and take care of these transplants till they're sturdy enough to go outside in the cold frame or the greenhouse, whatever you got. So we like to seed start because we can control the varieties. We can control who takes care of them, if they get malnourished or if they get stressed from somebody not watering them. We can make sure that we take care of them. We don't have to rely on somebody else to pick the varieties or to take care of them. And it's also a very fun process. Myself, I really love this aspect, and this part of the whole process is the seed starting. And we're going to be talking about the varieties we're going to be doing today. We already got the trays filled just for the sake of video to kind of speed up the process, and we are going to show you what seeds we're doing, talk about them, talk about our experiences, talk a little bit about a basic knowledge about tomatoes and seed starting these things in general. And usually the tomato seeds germinate. I prefer to use a heat mat. You don't need one. There are other ways you can do these things, but usually when you're germinating seeds, you need humidity and you need a constant temperature for them to germinate. So the germinating temperature for tomato seeds are 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Now if you're going to be transplanting them outside, the soil temperature needs to be at least 50 degrees at night. Otherwise they're going to go into a dormant phase and they're just going to sit there. If it's too cold, they'll turn a little purple if they get cold too. So you got to kind of make sure there's at least probably a couple days to a week of not cold nights, like 50 degrees soil temperature. Seed starting indoors, I have to make sure that I seed start the tomatoes 6 to 8 weeks is whenever they'll be mature enough to put outside as transplants, or pot up 4 to 6 weeks, whatever you got to do. I'm going to be potting these up at about 3 to 4 weeks and try to make it to that 8-week window that I'm looking for. Whenever they are transplants, I'll show you whenever time comes, but the leaves will probably turn a little purple if they get a little cold, or it's a natural thing that they get purple, so don't think there's something wrong with them. It just may be a little chilly, or even if the daytime temperatures are plenty warm, the night temperatures may still be too cold to be putting these transplants out there or in the greenhouse. You have to kind of be careful of that. The change in temperatures can cause the leaves to turn purple. You'll see it. It'll just turn a light shade of purple underneath and maybe on the stem. So we're going to go ahead and pick out our seed varieties. And like my other setup, I do have a binder for my warm season seed varieties. So we're going to go ahead and pick out the varieties we are using today. Alright everybody, this will be the varieties that I've got to be putting in. We're going to be doing 3 rows per variety, which should be around 33 transplants, so I usually just call it about 30 in case 3 don't make it. So I usually do 3 rows, so I have plenty, and that's going to be plenty tomato starts. Not to mention this is only the first tray, and then after those we got to do peppers here soon. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with these on the side here. Get these off. Alright everybody, just like before, we're going to start from this side and work our way this way. We're going to start with these new Halcinator tomatoes. It says about 1/4 inch deep. So we're going to go ahead and plant 3 rows of each of these varieties. Seeds are pelleted, which means they are coated with a clay. And with these kind of seeds, you got to make sure you top water enough to get that clay moist so it doesn't not germinate, because if you don't get that clay busted off there, it's going to be kind of hard for it to germinate. So you want to make sure that you do this top watering until they come up if you want to bottom water. Clay seeds are easier to handle. You can definitely get one on each cell if that's what you're worried about. Usually when I get these, I just press them in there. This next variety I'm going to do is called the Homestead Tomato. And these are not pelleted. I'm looking forward to these. These are supposed to be pretty good. This next variety is called Red Snapper Tomato. And it says the planting depth for these, which would be your seed starting depth, is 1/4 inch as well. These are pelleted seeds, as you can see. Got a little clay. Next up is these Summer Pick tomatoes, and these are pelleted as well. These are last year's leftovers. And if you are like me and sometimes you get lost, I like to keep a little piece of something to sit over where I was last at. That way you can make sure that you do put every seed in every hole. Next tomato we're going to be doing is Bella Rosa. It says about 1/4 inch planting depth as well. I've had really good success with these tomatoes. A lot of things that really stunt tomato growers is the disease, blossom end rot, all kinds of them. That's most of the reason why I usually grow these hybrid varieties, because they actually do have a very good flavor. They're not flavorless, and you get a good disease package against all the tomato diseases, or at least most of them for the right varieties you pick. I've had very good luck with these, and I've had pretty good luck with that. Next one we got is Container's Choice Red. It says about 1/4 inch depth as well. Move that over. Make sure none of your cells are just not too deep. First up is the Mountain Vineyard Tomato. It says about 1/4 inch deep for these. These are a grape tomato. I don't have as many of these. Now we're going to do these Yellow Canary tomato seeds. This is a dwarf variety. They're like made for containers, and they do really, really well. I got some last year in a hanging pot, and they did pretty good. And I only fertilized them maybe twice. I'm going to do my most anticipated variety for this year, and I'm looking forward to these Hausenator seeds. So I'm going to plant another row of these just to have them. Now that I got these done, I think I'm going to top them with some vermiculite, like I did the last test subjects. If you see my other videos on this tray, I used vermiculite instead of perlite. Vermiculite holds a lot more water, and with this smaller cell, I think that's going to be necessary, especially since I'm growing indoors. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then we'll come back with the other tray and the other varieties that we're going to do. So what I recommend is getting a sprayer like this. It'll help watering indoors than a regular squeeze spray bottle. It's a lot better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to water these in real good, and then we're going to go get the other tray and start on that. For sure, if it's got clay coating on them seeds. I usually do the perimeter first on the first watering sometimes, just to make sure them little cells do get the attention they need, because sometimes if you're just spraying like this, they don't exactly get the water that they need. Okay, now that we've got this watered in, the little trick is to create your own humidity dome. Usually you want the humidity dome on there until you see some of them start sprouting, and then you can take it off. It mainly just holds the moisture in there so the seed stays moist. And it's a pretty good idea to do that if you're doing this indoors. You can buy humidity domes, you can make them, but you don't have to use the expensive stuff. This is just what I have. So you just want to put some saran wrap on there. You can wrap the whole tray, or you can just do the top, whatever you want to do. Since I'm going to be using a heating mat, I'm just going to use the top, and I'm going to wipe the edges off just to see if I can get it to stick better. But the main factor here is you just want to keep that humidity in there. That's all we're doing here. Anywho, all this is doing is keeping the moisture in, which is kind of what you need whenever your seeds start in warm season or cold season crops. Doesn't really matter. But once they start germination, you need to take it off. This is just another trick that you can use to keep that moisture in there. And I would like to say it works very well, so I recommend doing it. Just keep an eye on them. You'll see them pop up. When they start popping up, you want to take it off so the light can get to it a lot easier and they don't get cramped under there. Alright, so since I got this done, later I'll be marking the divisions with a Sharpie and write down what I put in these, and then when this is done I'll put plant labels in them or something like that. So that's just another little trick. Use a Sharpie and write on your saran wrap what varieties you got where. So we're going to go ahead and get this other tray seed started, and we'll let you know what varieties we got in them. Alright, so what I got is this first one is my Kellogg's Breakfast Tomato. They all say about 1/4 inch deep for their planting depth, so I'm just going to tell you what varieties I got in here. I seed started it, and then we got to top it. But first I'm going to tell you what varieties I got. I got the Kellogg's Breakfast Tomato, Chef's Choice Orange, Arkansas Traveler, Brandywine Red, Big Rainbow, Black Prim, and the Mortgage Lifter. All these are 3 rows, and these are all Burpee, and the other ones are Haas. So I'm going to go ahead and get this topped, and then we're going to take you over to the germination mat, the heat mat, and talk about that a little bit. Alright, after you get this watered in, I top my seeds with vermiculite, which holds more water than perlite, because these are smaller cells, right? Because these are smaller cells. So, I'm doing this because of the water holding and nutrient holding capabilities. I ran a test on this, and it seemed to work really good, and I only had to water them like once every 2 days or so. Even after the heat and mat, they germinate. Like, I put my saran wrap on to hold the moisture in. Put them on a heating mat, about 85 degrees. And then if they need watered, obviously you're going to pull this off, but usually it lasts long enough for them to get germinated. So I've done my testing on it and I like the results that I'm seeing, so I'm going to keep doing this. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know if you've tried it. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write on these saran wrap covers what my varieties are. I always do my trays left to right, and I know I did every 3 rows each variety, so I'm going to specifically take a marker and write down what they are. So now that we got our seed cells started, we're going to take you over to the heating mat and kind of talk about that a little bit, show you what I got going on over there, and explain a little bit. Alright everybody, so this is what I got after I got it all set up and running. I usually, tips for running heat mats is the hottest spot is usually the middle, and if your seed starting mix is not moist, it will give you false readings most of the time. So you need to make sure you have moisture in your soil exactly where your probe's at, and I put it in the center. You want to make sure you have as much moisture as it needs because it will give you inaccurate readings. Dry soil reads different than wet soil. So I have mine up on this little rack with airflow, and I put tin foil underneath to catch anything that could drip, fall, or run off. And then so far it's worked pretty good. This has been a pretty good setup for me. And the lights are pretty high up, but surprisingly I haven't had any trouble with that. And usually I move them to one of the lower racks, which are closer together after they germinate anyway, because they don't need the heating mat after about 70-80% germinate. So we got that all set up. Let's take a look, see what they look like. I got all of them labeled. Okay, now I'm going to take you over here and show you where the probe comes from and the thermostat that I have with this ready heat mat. So this is it. This is my ready heat mat probe thermostat. I can put up to four mats on there, and so far it's trying to heat to 85 degrees. If I hold both buttons in, it'll show me the current temp of the soil. So let's try it. 70. So they're 70 right now, but so far this has been a pretty good setup. I recommend using the shrink wrap till most of them pop up, or at least till maybe a day or 2 or 3 days. I'm going to do the same thing with probably my peppers. So turned out pretty good. I usually have my seed starting schedule here broken down by every week of each month, what I start when, and a little information about each varieties. This is my acclimation schedule. But this is not a pro gardener here. Thanks for sticking along. Hope you learned something, and have a great day. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified anytime I come out with a new video. Thanks.